I'm going to go through a short selection of two-column proofs just to show you some practice. This one you were given circle P and you were trying to show that segment AB is congruent to segment CD, and so we're given that we have circle P. First thing, PA is congruent to PB, is congruent to PC, congruent to PD, and that's because all radii are equal. So that's just something you have to go with because we haven't talked about circles yet. And then we have angle CPD is congruent to angle APB. So these angles are congruent, and that's because vertical angles are congruent. Then we have triangle CPD is congruent to triangle APB, and that's a side angle side. And finally, if we want to show that AB is congruent to CD, they're corresponding parts of congruent triangles, and so therefore they are congruent by CPCTC. Here we have AB, and here's YZ, and this is point C. So we have, this is our given, angle B and angle Y are congruent. C is the midpoint of BY. So I list all my given. Should write that down here. All right, so we can say that YC is congruent to CB, and that's the definition of a midpoint because we're told that C is the midpoint of BY, so cut it in half, so YC is congruent to CB. And we can say that angle ACB is congruent to angle ZCY, these two angles, and that's because they're vertical angles, so therefore they're congruent. And now we have enough information to say that triangles are congruent by angle side angle because we had an angle, a side, and an angle, and we had another triplet up in the upper one. And now that we know that triangles are congruent, we can say that AB is congruent to YZ because they're corresponding parts of congruent triangles, and therefore they're congruent. So even if you don't recognize it up here, you can see it in the lettering. First and third with first and third, the letters match up. So that's an important clue to look for in your congruence statement. Okay, over here we list all of our given. It's important to have the picture and label it. We know these two triangles are congruent by SSS, and so therefore we can say that angle A is congruent to angle D by CPCTC. Okay, we've got this figure. These angles are congruent. That's our given. We can say that GJ is congruent to GJ by reflexive, so I put in a tick mark for that. Now I could say these two triangles are congruent by angle side angle. And now that I know the triangles are congruent, HG is congruent to KJ by CPCTC. Okay, FH, line FH, bisects GFJ, and it also bisects GHJ. And I want to show that FG is congruent to FJ. So I list all my given. I can say that angle 1 is congruent to angle 2, angle 3 is congruent to angle 4, and that's a definition of an angle bisector because we're told that this is a bisector. I can also say that FH is congruent to itself by reflexive. And now I can say the upper and lower triangles are congruent by angle side angle. And now that I've established the triangles are congruent, FG is congruent to FJ by CPCTC. In this figure, I state all my given. I can say that angle 1 plus angle 2 is angle ABF. Angle 3 plus angle 4 is EBF. This is one of several ways to do this proof. This is angle addition postulate. And now I can say that angle ABF is congruent to angle EBF. And I know that because all right angles are congruent, and I'm told that this is perpendicular. So I should have said they're right angles before saying they're congruent. So that's one extra step you could throw in. Now I can say that angle 1 plus angle 2 is angle 3 plus angle 4 because I've established that these two are the same. I know that 1 and 2 equal this, 3 and 4 equal this. Because they're the same, I know these two sums are the same, and that's substitution. And I know that angle 2 and angle 3 are the same, so I can subtract those off, and I get angle 1 is congruent to angle 4 by, again, subtraction or substitution. And now that I've got that, I can say that these two triangles are congruent by angle side angle. And finally, I can show that CB is congruent to DB by CPCTC. So this says CB congruent to DB by CPCTC because I've now shown finally the two triangles are congruent.